Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to crack open the intelligence playbook and try to decode a whole flurry of signals that all point to one very urgent question. Yep, this is the question that's absolutely dominating the headlines. Is military action just over the horizon? We're going to piece together all the evidence, just like an intelligence analyst would, to see if we can find an answer. And our main tool for this is something called OSINT, or Open Source Intelligence. Now, we're not using classified secrets here. We're using data that's out in the open for anyone to find, if you know where to look. We're talking about things like satellite imagery, official government statements, and even public flight tracking data. All right, let's get right into the evidence. We're going to start by looking at the military hardware, the literal pieces on the chessboard that are moving into position. And first up, the Navy. The first big clue showed up right here. For just a little while, the USS Gerald R, and we're talking about one of the most advanced warships ever built, it just popped up on public tracking systems right off the coast of Morocco. This was our very first sign that a major asset was on the move. Its path then took it straight through a critical maritime choke point, the Strait of Gibraltar. And let's be really clear, this isn't just a casual sail. It is a deliberate move from the Atlantic into the Mediterranean, and that signals a major strategic shift. And as you can see, this puts it in a whole new operating area. By entering the Mediterranean, the USS Ford is now significantly closer to the Middle East, and it's joining another carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is already there. Now, having two aircraft carriers in the same region, that is a massive statement. It's what military planners call a dual carrier posture, and it does three things. It dramatically speeds up military options, it gives them an incredible layer of defense, and boy does it send a powerful political signal. But it's not just about the carriers. We also have to look at the air power. In mid-February, analysts saw this huge surge in what they call enablers. These are the critical support aircraft. The flying gas stations, the airborne command posts, the fighters, all the stuff that is absolutely essential for any large-scale air campaign. So you gotta ask, right? What are these large transport planes likely carrying? We can't see inside, of course, but based on military doctrine and past conflicts, the cargo almost certainly includes munitions, spare parts, and everything you'd need to sustain air operations for weeks, not just a few days. Okay, but this is where the story gets really complicated. Because just as the military picture is screaming high alert, there's a completely different narrative unfolding on the diplomatic front. While all that hardware is on the move, the diplomats are still talking. This quote, it's from an official statement by Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They're not talking about ultimatums, they're talking about guiding principles and drafting proposals. And that tells us the diplomatic channel is still very much open. And this slide, wow, it just shows these two parallel tracks perfectly. Look at February 17th. Indirect talks begin, but on the very same day, Iran is out there conducting military drills. Or check out the 19th. The USS Ford is tracked, and reports of a political deadline emerge. This isn't just diplomacy or military pressure, it's both, happening at the exact same time. And you have to remember, none of this is happening in a vacuum. The international reaction is pretty clear. You've got Russia and China urging restraint. Key regional partners like the UAE are publicly stating their territory won't be used for attacks. The overwhelming global consensus is pushing for diplomacy, not conflict. Now, to really understand the stakes here, we also have to look inside Iran. The regime isn't making these decisions in a bubble. It's facing some immense pressure at home. You hear analysts use this phrase, controlled but brittle. So what does it actually mean? Well, it means the government's security forces are keeping things in order for now, but the severe economic strain means any new shock, like a military strike or even more sanctions, could have completely unpredictable results. So let's recap. We have a military that looks ready for action and a diplomatic track that's still very much active. So how do intelligence analysts weigh these competing signals to actually come to a conclusion? Well, they use a weighted model, something that looks a lot like this one. They take each piece, like force readiness or the diplomatic situation, and they score it based on the evidence. And this is key. Notice how military factors like force readiness are scored really high, but the diplomatic breakdown is scored much, much lower. And when you tally it all up, you get a composite risk score of 58 out of 100. This number is so crucial. It tells us the risk is clearly elevated, but it is not at its absolute peak. There's still room for things to escalate or de-escalate. And this chart shows how that risk plays out over time. See, the probability is lowest in the next 24 hours, but it really starts to climb as we get closer to that reported 10 to 15-day political deadline. The clock is definitely ticking. This brings us to the crucial comparison. So when you map today's evidence against the known signatures of past military strikes, you see some clear matches. The air power is there, the carriers are in position, but the number one indicator, a full diplomatic breakdown, that's missing. At least, not yet. Okay, so this brings us to the most important question for you. What key signals should you be watching for in the news? What will tell you this whole situation is about to change dramatically? Here is your 72-hour watch list. Think of these as the 5 flip indicators. A public announcement that talks are canceled. A sudden surge of those big cargo planes. Spy planes flying repeated patterns over very specific areas. The USS Ford moving rapidly into the Eastern Med. Or some kind of trigger incident in the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts will tell you, if you see any 2 of these 5 things happen, the probability of conflict is going to spike within 72 hours. And that leaves us right here. All the military pieces are on the board, totally ready to go. But the trigger, that final political decision, it hasn't been pulled. We're watching a high-stakes race between military deterrence and diplomatic negotiation. And right now, the outcome is anything but certain.